Let me talk a little bit about what else is going on with the delicate Kosovo-Serbian relations, and of course the relationships also with Albania and Macedonia. Um, Dejan, please can you tell us first the Serbian point of view and what the difficulties are from the standpoint of the Belgrade Center for Human Rights?
Well, there are two issues here which are completely separated. One is that Serbia, as a nation, still has a lot of problems reconciling with the fact that Kosovo is now a separate state.
Yes,
So,
which of course they would. Serbia has vowed not to include to recognize Kosovo. Yes,
exactly. So Serbia really does not have serious issues with Kosovo being a country. That's one set of a problem. The other set of a problems is the rule of law in Kosovo, which is a serious issue. What we have is not only the Marty's report, but various other reports from organizations such as Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and reports by European Commission and different international observers saying essentially there's a serious problem with the rule of law in Kosovo. The organized crime has penetrated the highest echelons of the state, and that any serious work on introducing rule of law is met with fierce resistance from the state, from the government of Kosovo.
Well,
and these are two separate.
Yes, go ahead.
These are two separate problems. Now, every time the government of Kosovo gets accused for doing anything illegal, they say, "Oh, this is just a Serbian propaganda. This is an attempt to undermine our glorious liberation fight, and we are going to take serious measures against people who are making these allegations." They actually made a serious threat against not only Dick Marty, but also the Prime Minister of Kosovo, Mr. Htachi, the designated Prime Minister, has said that everybody who took part in writing this report is going to suffer consequences.
Right. And there is also a rich overlay of history and nationalism that makes the reporting of this story even more difficult. Zheta, could you talk a little bit about that, about the relationship with Albania, for example?
It's not only about history, but a continuation of some practical things that Serbia is continuing to do in Kosovo and to undermine its statehood. Such things are very concrete and non-historic, may I say. And those are simply Serbia every month is sending money to Kosovo to pay Serbian teachers, Serbian doctors, Serbian policemen, and is paying their salaries. But apart from that, is doing this untransparently. Simply money is being channeled through Kosovo, money from Serbia. This, in many ways, simply encourages two different systems to work in Kosovo. Apart from this, it encourages the north of Kosovo to remain completely lawless and to damage the Kosovo budget, because even the goods are coming without customs taxes, and not only that the budget of Kosovo is being damaged through this, but it's also the Serbian budget. But the Serbia is still continuing in this direction, which I believe these are one of the issues that should be discussed during the talks that the European Union is so insisting that they need to start as soon as possible. On the other hand, in the last 3 years, many things have not gone well for Kosovo in terms of economy, recognition of states, but what has gone much better than expectations were was relation to Serbs, especially Serbs inside of Kosovo. It is maybe it's not a big deal today when we remember, but 3 years ago, a lot of newspapers and media and journalists, international journalists, were writing about fears that the Serbian people from Kosovo will be leaving in mass and there will be an exodus. That hasn't happened. Out of many other things that scenarios that were being predicted for Kosovo, that hasn't happened. The Serbs that remained in Kosovo remained those that were prior to declaration of independence, stayed in Kosovo. Relations with the Serbs of the south have improved because we can notice that by the participation in elections. There's been a higher number of Serbs participating in last elections than they were before. However, of course, the Serbs in the north remain as in the same position, status quo, limbo, and a very lawless time and position in the north of Kosovo. So that's where we are, and this is the moment where we are in front of new talks that will begin between Pristina and Belgrade.
Yes, and we hope the best for those new talks. Besa, could you remind us a little bit about the relationship with Albania? Just 3 years ago, we had wonderful pictures of Albanian and Albanian Americans celebrating the independence of Kosovo in Times Square in New York City. What is that relationship, and particularly with the United States, and a little bit with, of course, with what is happening in Tirana?
I'm sorry, I missed the end of the question. So to talk about the relations between
the United States and Kosovo, and
the
also a
Albanian
little bit
community,
about Tirana. Besa, are you there?
Yes.
Good. Talk first about the United States and what is the presence or the influence of the United States, if any, in Kosovo?
Well, I mean, I think there's a huge difference. I mean, there is an influence of the United States in Kosovo, and I mean it's because there's very good relations between the U.S. and Kosovo, because overall there is that sentiment like throughout Kosovo, and that respect towards the United States because of '99 when basically the U.S. actually led and initiated the NATO bombing campaign when ethnic cleansing was going on in Kosovo in the end of the '90s. So, I think, and even today, and I think that's where Kosovo sometimes that's why it gets in a very delicate position when it comes to its relations with international actors, because while Kosovo does have a future with integrations into the European Union, there's still a heavily influence and relation that it has with the U.S. even in Kosovo. So I think in a country like that's as young, and there's a lot of state building processes going on in Kosovo. There's also a lot of cooperation going on with various international missions that are in Kosovo, and I think sometimes there's a bit of kind of like discourse conflict as to like with whom to side on, or like whom to trust, or with whom to kind of cooperate on things. And I think when there was talks also about starting up the dialogue, the upcoming discussions between Pristina and Belgrade, there was a lot of emphasis put on the fact that they have to be led by the EU, because as the process itself, the process of talks between Pristina and Belgrade should be also maybe placed on a context of European integration for both countries.
Yes, and the EU itself has made it clear, have they not, that neither Serbia or Kosovo would be considered eligible if they cannot resolve their differences.
Yeah. But the difference between Kosovo and Serbia is the fact that Serbia can enter a contractual agreement with the EU, while Kosovo can't, because from the 27 states that are member states of the European Union, there are still 5 remaining countries that don't recognize Kosovo. So that prevents Kosovo from joining the European integration process as other countries in the region have done. So I think that is also, and we feel even in a daily matter, like citizens of Kosovo, they feel the consequences of that. So in that sense, Kosovo is in a more fragile position than Serbia is.
Orban, let me ask you just quickly to comment on what Bess has said. Is there a feeling among Kosovans that perhaps their future is at the mercy of international organizations and with other larger nations? We have a bit of a delay here. Orban?
Yes.
Yes. Is there a feeling that Kosovans, among Kosovans, that the future of the nation is dependent on these international organizations like ULEX and the United Nations and EU and NATO?
Well, actually, Kosovans should probably evaluate the most pro-Western population in all this region. All the aim of every citizen is how to join to EU in order to have better payments and better conditions of life. But my opinion is that we don't, in other regions, even in Kosovo, in Serbia, in Macedonia, or in Albania, we don't have a political class which is competent to deal with the aim of citizens to join to the EU and to other instruments of West instruments.
So what is the immediate future? We have these talks that everyone has mentioned that are starting again. Dejan, could you give us a bit of a look at the future from your point of view?
Considering the talks?
Yes.
Well, I don't have much enthusiasm for these talks because I don't think that either side is really entering these talks in good faith. The talks are the result of the pressure, mostly by European Union.
Oh, in just 30 seconds, Jeta, could you give us the view from Pristina?
Well, finally, the talks really are not such a priority for Kosovo, but they are for European Union. For Kosovo, the priority of every citizen today is actually the fact that last 2 weeks, the price of bread, which is the basic of food in Kosovo, has gone up 30%, and there are a warning that it will go up 50%. So everybody is more concerned with how to get food on the table and how to improve 40% unemployment.
I'm going to have to interrupt you there, Jeta. One quick final thought. While much of our attention is often elsewhere, currently the Arab world, for example, we can't forget that the troubled Balkans have provided the spark for 2 world wars in the century just past and continue to be a worry for diplomats and agencies yet today. Kosovo, Serbia, Albania, Macedonia, and its neighbors cannot be ignored. Thanks to our guests, Beselusi, Jeta Jara, Orban Ahmeti, and Dejan Anastasijevic. Our director is Travis McMillan, audio by Pat Akers. The producers of Global Journalists are David Cawthon, Ryan Kress, Jessica Popovic. Our video producer is Tim Wall. Rebecca Wilson is executive producer. Stephanie Tabor is the production assistant. This is Byron Scott for Global Journalists, reminding you that you can download, view, or listen to our show, plus additional features by going to globaljournalists.org. This is Byron Scott. Good evening.